My beautiful souls, welcome to this transmission. So today I want to share with you about how we can find more bliss, more peace in such a broken world. And this is a really deep topic. And so I'm just going to be sharing with you, I guess, the 3 steps towards transforming our experience of life. But before I jump into it, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your comments. I love reading all your comments. And thank you to those of you who've donated. That means so much to me. I really appreciate that. And, keep up the sharing because that's how we evolve and grow, is this connection and interaction. So the more we can connect as humans and in this kind of this space of potentiality, the sooner we can ripple that out into our world and into what we're experiencing in life. So thank you. So finding bliss in a broken world. If we look outside of ourselves, there's some pretty hectic stuff going on. And before I get too deep into this, I do want to honor that there are some really horrific experiences that are being played out in the world at the moment. And we do have access to different layers of consciousness through which we can view and experience that. And when we're fully identified with our ego and with our human self, the news of those events can be completely debilitating. They can completely freeze us. Our nervous system can go into a response where, we're kind of incapacitated and we feel overwhelmed and disempowered. And so I do want to completely honor that there are people experiencing horrific things. But I also want to bring our awareness back to discerning how we choose to be impacted by these things. Now, this doesn't mean sticking your head in the sand, but it does mean that you have sovereignty over your frequency. You are the one who gets to determine whether this piece of information is going to interact with my energetic field. And if so, how is it going to do that? Am I going to allow it to interact with me and completely shut me down? Or am I going to allow it to interact with me and inspire me into action? So that's a point on quantum discernment, which I won't talk about too much here. But the first point I want to make is that we say we have this broken world, or that term is used a lot, the world's so broken. What if it's not broken? What if it's a part of the natural, necessary evolution that we need to go through as a collective, as a whole? I liken this to the journey of the caterpillar as it becomes a butterfly. Caterpillar doesn't go curl up in its cocoon and, have a nice, happy little nap and then come out looking beautiful and different. No, a caterpillar goes in there. A caterpillar is completely broken down. It's dissolved, turns into mush. And then from that mush is reconstructed the creature that we see as the butterfly. And so even though we're not seeing the absolute destruction that's required in order to move from one form to another, it's a process which is inherent in all parts of nature, the death and the rebirth cycle. And so what if in our world, what if we have this amazing, potent gateway that we're currently moving through as a human collective, and that the more of us who learn to hold and cultivate and discern our sovereignty and our energetic reflection and projection into reality, what if the more of us that can do that, the more we start to actually shift our manifested reality into something that we can experience as being, more expansive, more full of light, more full of love? What if what we're seeing playing out is actually the projection of the denser parts of ourselves, of our collective, actually melting away? And I know this can be a very confronting thing if we let ourselves get really bogged down in the news and things that are going on, you know, thousands and thousands of miles away. And I know that they may, you know, we all have connections to various parts of the world. But this is where I would say there's an element of destructive empathy. So empathy can be a really destructive force because it brings a destructive energy into your current field, instead of the reverse happening, where perhaps you can be more discerning and choose to anchor a constructive energy for what's an otherwise destructive situation. So I was going to make this a quick one. I'm not sure how I'm going. So let's just come back to the simplicity of it. We've got, you know, this breakdown, which may not, you know, the more we focus on it being the end of days in a broken world, the more that's what's going to play out. But if we can shift our perspective and shift what we're anchoring into, shift the reality, shift the sense of potential, shift your focus and your awareness in, like I said, that discernment factor. How is this piece of information going to affect my field? And this is how we do it without shoving our head in the sand, is through this quantum discernment. So I suppose at the end of it, if we're talking about bliss in the broken world, it all comes back to suffering. And so what causes suffering? Suffering is the result of our attachment. It's our attachment or our resistance to what presently is. And all of our attachment and our resistance or our suffering, it arises from the meaning that we give something. You know, and we can look at anything, everything that we look at, we give a meaning to. You can look at terrible situations, or you can look at the state of the world and you can say, oh, it's hopeless, why even bother? Or you can look at what's happening in the world and say, this is how I'm going to radiate. This is how I choose to be in alignment with my soul. The soul doesn't want you to get bogged down in overwhelm and what can't work. The soul is here. You're incarnated at this time because we're all here to do this work, to expand and to anchor into transformation. And sometimes that means we have to watch the absolute destruction of the parts of collective that are no longer serving us. And those parts of the collective will fight for their survival. So I hope this is landing for you, because this is a really potent piece in clearing your field of the pain and the suffering and the stories that lead us to, that can be really incapacitating. So if we look at 3 stages of potentially transforming our experience, and the first is to identify the lack, identify the story, you know, be willing to look at the story as being a story that you have actually put onto something. Yes, events happen, but at the very core of it, when events happen, it's us who places meaning on it. And you can only look at the example of conflict, you know, 2 sides having a conflict. If one side's winning, this group of people are happy, while this group of people are sad. So that's not an absolute truth, is it? I think in those situations, the only absolute truth is that do no harm. Any harm is a distortion of our natural law. But, you know, when it comes down to these situations where we're placing judgments or we're being dragged down energetically by what we perceive as, by the stories that we're creating about the events that we see. And mind you, turn off the news, because the news is never going to give you anything to lift you up. The news is put in place to perpetuate the status quo of our current manifested reality. So when we add meaning, we create our own suffering by doing this. And oftentimes we'll find that meaning is very deeply linked to a subconscious sense of identity. So who we consider ourselves to be, not in terms of the roles that we play, but the very innate sense of self, the very innate sense of right or wrong that we embody and inhabit in order to fit into the mold of reality that we've created around us. So that's the first step. Just identify, just become aware of the meanings. And the second step is once you become aware that you're judging or creating narratives and stories, how deeply can you let go of that? So it's not about denying or rationalizing, but it's about looking and feeling and then being in acceptance of that. So we never heal by thinking our way out of something. We never clear patterns by churning something over in our mind. We heal by sitting with the embodiment of it. And so when you notice a judgment, sit with it, but also allow yourself to energetically create some space. No denying, full acceptance, but absolute non-attachment. It's releasing that judgment piece. And then the third stage of this transformation process to shift into more bliss and to shift into the capacity to find more freedom in our world and to create the world that we want instead of perpetuating the world that we don't want. Because everything occurs in the energetic field first. You might say, oh, how is me feeling better going to help anyone overseas? Well, you might not see an immediate result. But if you think about 6 billion people shifting their energy field in this way, that's going to create a big result. So never underestimate yourself or the depth of your purpose and the contribution that you make, not just to yourself, but to the even just like the close groups around you, your close circles. So the third point is, so once you're able to kind of recognize and loosen the grip on the suffering that you're attaching to outside of you, breathe, physically and metaphorically, just breathe into this new vision, shift your focus and use that discernment piece so that your focus doesn't automatically come with the story. Instead of focusing on everything that's wrong, perhaps we can focus on the potential to create. And I think Abraham Hicks talks about this. If you can't do it on the sort of specifics, do it in general. How would it feel in your body to live in a world where there was peace? How would it feel in your body to live in a world where everybody was valued and there was freedom of speech? So at this point, if we've let go of the density and the rigidity of our attachment to what's right and wrong, we can actually anchor into our personal experience instead of anchoring into somebody else's. So shift your focus into the joy of every day. If you go for a walk in nature, become present to that nature, to the beauty, to the life, to the vibrance that is actually around you. So this is how we bring bliss into a broken world. It's a world that's transforming. And the greatest gift that you can give is to find your own joy and your own bliss and your own peace and to shine that around you. Discernment is a really powerful word. So my loves, if this has resonated, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment. If you would like more from me, just check the description box for some info on how we can connect. Or if you know of anyone who might benefit, please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. So I wish you well, and I wish you love, and I wish you peace.